Clint Eastwood is a name that almost everyone recognizes. A legendary actor, director, and producer, he's known worldwide for iconic roles in films like Dirty Harry, Gran Torino, and Million Dollar Baby. Over the decades, Clint has earned millions of fans, countless awards, and a lasting legacy in Hollywood. Yet, behind the tough guy image in the spotlight, there is a side of Clint that many don't know, a deeply personal and spiritual journey that transformed his life. Despite his fame and success, Clint often found himself wrestling with questions about purpose, meaning, and faith. Like many of us, he faced moments of doubt and uncertainty about life's bigger picture. It wasn't until a powerful vision came to him that everything began to change. This vision wasn't just a fleeting thought or an ordinary dream. It was a profound experience that opened Clint's eyes to a new path, one that led him closer to Jesus Christ. This moment marked a turning point in his life, guiding him from fame and fortune to faith and spiritual awakening. What was this vision? What did Clint see or feel that moved him so deeply? And how did it lead him to follow Jesus Christ, changing not only his beliefs, but his entire way of living? In this story, we'll take you through Clint Eastwood's remarkable journey, from the height of Hollywood fame to the humble realization of a greater purpose. We'll explore the moment that sparked his faith and the impact it had on his life, family, and work. If you've ever wondered what it means to have a life-changing vision or felt curious about how faith can transform even the most unexpected people, this story will inspire and encourage you. Stay with us as we uncover the vision that led Clint Eastwood to follow Jesus Christ. A story of hope, transformation, and the power of faith. The turning point in Clint Eastwood's spiritual journey came during a time when his life felt full of success, but also quiet emptiness. Despite the applause, the awards, and the financial achievements, Clint sensed something was missing, a deeper meaning beyond the bright lights and cameras. It was during one of these reflective moments that Clint experienced a powerful vision, an event so vivid and profound that it changed everything he thought he knew about himself and his life's purpose. The vision came unexpectedly, almost like a whisper in the middle of the noise. Clint was alone, away from the chaos of Hollywood, perhaps in a quiet room or on a solitary walk. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. The world around him faded, and he was enveloped in a feeling that was both unsettling and strangely comforting. What Clint saw was not a dramatic or flashy image, but something deeply symbolic and personal. He saw a path, a narrow path that led through darkness but ended in light. Along this path stood a figure, humble and full of compassion. This figure radiated love, peace, and forgiveness. Clint realized, in that instant, that the vision was pointing him toward Jesus Christ. The man he saw wasn't just a distant historical figure or a character from the Bible. This was a living presence calling him to follow a different way of life, one centered on faith, humility, and grace. The emotions Clint felt were intense. At first, there was confusion. How could a man like him, an independent, self-made Hollywood star, find meaning in something so spiritual? But as the vision continued, it brought a sense of peace that he had never experienced before. Clint described feeling an overwhelming sense of love that didn't come from any person or achievement, but from something greater than himself. It was a love that accepted his flaws and failures without judgment, a love that invited him to start anew. As the vision faded, Clint was left with a lingering question. Could he truly change? Could he surrender his pride, his ego, and the image he had built for decades? This moment was not a one-time event, but the beginning of an inner dialogue, a spiritual awakening. For days, Clint reflected on what he had seen. He read scriptures, sought counsel, and prayed for understanding. What made this vision even more powerful was its timing. Clint had been at a crossroads in his life, facing decisions about his career, family, and legacy. The vision came as a guiding light, offering clarity and hope where there had been doubt. He began to see his life through a new lens. The fame and fortune, while impressive, were fleeting. What truly mattered was his relationship with God and how he treated others. The vision taught Clint that following Jesus Christ was not about abandoning his identity, but transforming it. It was about humility, service, and living with purpose. This realization sparked a profound change in Clint's heart and mind. He became more introspective, seeking to align his actions with his new faith. His approach to work shifted. He looked for projects that reflected values of redemption, forgiveness, and human dignity. Beyond his career, Clint's relationships deepened. He became more patient, compassionate, and willing to forgive past hurts. The vision gave him a foundation of hope that strengthened him during life's challenges. What's remarkable is that Clint did not keep this transformation hidden. While he remained private about many aspects of his personal life, he began to speak openly about his faith in interviews and public appearances, inspiring others to explore their own spiritual journeys. His vision was a beacon for those who feel lost or overwhelmed by the pressures of success and materialism. It showed that no matter who you are, a moment of clarity and divine connection can redirect your path. In sharing this story, Clint Eastwood invites us to consider the possibility of our own visions. Moments when something beyond the ordinary touches our hearts and challenges us to grow. Have you ever experienced a moment that made you rethink your life's direction? A time when you felt called towards something greater? If so, you're not alone. Clint's vision is a reminder that transformation often begins with a single, profound encounter, whether in a dream, a prayer, or a quiet moment of reflection. Stay tuned as we continue this journey to see how Clint made the decision to follow Jesus Christ and the impact it had on his life and legacy. After experiencing that powerful vision, Clint Eastwood found himself facing a whirlwind of emotions. The vivid image of the narrow path, the radiant figure of Jesus Christ, and the overwhelming sense of love and peace lingered in his mind, refusing to be forgotten. But with this newfound insight came questions and struggles. For someone who had built his life on independence, strength, and self-reliance, accepting the message of humility and faith wasn't easy. Clint was a man who thrived on control, directing films, managing his public image, and standing as a symbol of toughness on screen. The vision challenged everything he thought he knew about power and success. He began to feel a tension inside himself, a tug-of-war between the man he had always been and the man the vision called him to become. The old Clint, confident and unshakable, met a new Clint, vulnerable and searching for deeper meaning. This inner conflict was not unusual. Many people experience a spiritual awakening as a process, not a single event. For Clint, it meant wrestling with doubts, fears, and sometimes even resistance. Could he really surrender to a faith that asked for humility and trust in something unseen? At times, Clint felt overwhelmed by the enormity of the change ahead. The world around him, the glitz of Hollywood, the expectations of fans, the pressures of his career, seemed to pull him back toward the familiar. But the vision had planted a seed that kept growing, pushing him toward transformation. He found himself reading the Bible with a new curiosity, searching for answers to the questions burning inside. Passages about forgiveness, love, and grace spoke to him in ways they never had before. He reached out to trusted friends and spiritual mentors, engaging in honest conversations about faith. What struck Clint most was the idea that following Jesus wasn't about perfection, but about grace, accepting God's love even with flaws and failures. It was about starting anew, not being defined by past mistakes or accomplishments. This shift in perspective gave Clint hope. He realized that the emptiness he had sometimes felt wasn't a failure, but an invitation to grow. The vision wasn't just a moment of inspiration, it was a call to a new way of life. Clint also began noticing changes in his attitude toward others. Where he had once prioritized success and recognition, he started valuing kindness, compassion, and service. He became more patient with his family, more understanding with colleagues, and more open to people from all walks of life. At the same time, Clint's faith journey didn't mean abandoning his career. Instead, He sought to infuse his work with the values the vision inspired. He chose projects that highlighted human dignity, redemption, and hope, stories that resonated with his new beliefs. The impact of the vision rippled beyond Clint himself. His transformation influenced his relationships, his work, and his public image. Fans and peers noticed a quieter strength in him, a confidence grounded not in fame, but in faith. But perhaps the most profound change was internal. Clint found a peace that transcended the applause and accolades, a sense of purpose that went beyond earthly success. He discovered that the vision had opened a door to a life filled with meaning and connection to God. This part of Clint's journey reminds us that transformation is rarely easy. It often involves struggle, doubt, and vulnerability. But it also shows that a single moment, a vision, an insight, a call, can set us on a path toward renewal. As Clint Eastwood walked this new path, he learned that faith is not about having all the answers, but about trusting the journey, about embracing humility, seeking grace, and living with intention. This is a story that resonates with anyone who has faced a crossroads, who has questioned their purpose or longed for something more. Clint's experience is an invitation to explore our own spiritual awakenings, however they come. What doubts or fears have held you back from embracing change? Have you ever felt the call to something greater, even if the path seemed uncertain? In the next part, we'll explore the moment when Clint made the conscious decision to follow Jesus Christ and how that choice transformed his life forever. After days and weeks of reflection, wrestling with his doubts and fears, Clint Eastwood arrived at a profound crossroads. The vision he had seen was no longer just an experience or a fleeting moment. It was a calling, a life-altering invitation. But accepting it meant making a choice, to continue down the familiar path of fame and independence, or to embrace a new way of living centered on faith in Jesus Christ. For Clint, this decision was neither simple nor easy. The man he had been, strong, self-reliant, and known for his rugged individualism, faced the challenge of surrendering control to a higher power. It required humility, vulnerability, and the courage to admit that no matter how much he had achieved, there was something greater to seek. One day, in quiet solitude, Clint made the choice. He chose to follow Jesus Christ. This decision was more than just words. It was a commitment to transform his heart and mind, to align his actions with the teachings of Christ. It meant embracing forgiveness for himself and others, and living with a spirit of grace, compassion, and service. Clint recalls that moment as both deeply peaceful and powerful. The overwhelming love he had felt during the vision now became a steady foundation in his daily life. He experienced a sense of freedom unlike anything he had known before. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from the burdens of pride, fear, and isolation. With this new faith, Clint began to see the world differently. The struggles and challenges he had once faced with frustration or anger were now opportunities for growth and grace. The relationships that mattered most to his family, friends, and colleagues became sources of joy and healing. Clint's decision also influenced his professional life. He sought out projects that reflected the values he now cherished: redemption, hope, and the power of human kindness. Films that portrayed authentic stories of struggle and triumph resonated deeply with him. He didn't shout about his faith or make it a public spectacle. Instead, Clint let his actions speak. His humility, integrity, and kindness became a quiet testimony to the change within. Of course, the path wasn't without challenges. Embracing faith required ongoing effort, prayer, study, and sometimes wrestling with doubt. Clint understood that following Jesus was a lifelong journey, not a one-time event. Yet, each day brought new strength and clarity. The vision that had started it all remained a guiding light, reminding him of the love and grace that called him forward. Clint's story is a powerful reminder that faith is a choice, one that requires courage and commitment. It shows that no matter where we come from or what we've done, we can all find a path to transformation through Jesus Christ. This decision to follow Jesus didn't just change Clint's beliefs. It reshaped his identity and purpose. It gave him a new way to live fully and love deeply. For anyone listening, Clint's journey invites reflection. What choices are you facing today? Are you open to a transformation that could lead to hope, peace, and renewed purpose? Stay with us as we explore how Clint's life unfolded after this decision, how his faith influenced his relationships, work, and legacy. Clint Eastwood's decision to follow Jesus Christ marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, a chapter defined not by fame or fortune, but by faith, purpose, and transformation. As he embraced this path, the changes were both subtle and profound, touching every aspect of his world. One of the most noticeable shifts was in how Clint approached his work. Known for his iconic roles as the tough, silent hero, Clint's new outlook infused his projects with deeper meaning. He began to seek out stories that resonated with his faith, films that explored themes of redemption, forgiveness, and the human spirit's capacity for change. This didn't mean abandoning the grit or realism that made him famous. Rather, it meant telling stories with heart, stories that celebrated hope even in the darkest circumstances. Films like Gran Torino and Million Dollar Baby exemplify this blend of raw honesty and spiritual reflection, showcasing characters who wrestle with their pasts but find grace along the way. Clint's faith also influenced his leadership style behind the camera. Colleagues noted a new patience and compassion in his directing, a desire to uplift rather than dominate. He became known not just as a filmmaker, but as a mentor and guide, someone who valued integrity and kindness as much as talent. Outside of work, Clint's personal relationships deepened. He became more present with his family, valuing time with loved ones over the demands of fame. His faith taught him forgiveness and understanding, helping him heal old wounds and build bridges where there had been conflict. Those closest to him observed a quiet strength and humility that contrasted with the tough guy persona the public knew. Clint himself spoke of feeling a peace that came from surrendering control, trusting in God's plan rather than relying solely on his own strength. Faith also brought Clint a sense of purpose beyond himself. He became more involved in philanthropic efforts and community work, driven by a desire to serve others and make a positive impact. Whether supporting charities or quietly helping those in need, Clint's actions reflected his belief that faith is lived out in deeds, not just words. Yet, this journey was not without challenges. Maintaining faith amid the pressures of Hollywood and the complexities of life required discipline and humility. Clint acknowledged moments of doubt and struggle but relied on prayer, scripture, and community for support. His openness about faith, though measured, inspired many. Interviews and speeches occasionally touched on the role spirituality played in his life, encouraging others to explore their own beliefs. Clint's example showed that faith is not a sign of weakness but a source of strength and resilience. The transformation Clint underwent illustrates a universal truth, that true change is possible at any stage of life. It's a journey marked by small steps, moments of reflection, acts of kindness, and choices made daily to follow a higher path. Clint's story reminds us that faith is not about perfection but progress. It's about striving to live with integrity, compassion, and grace despite our flaws. It's about finding meaning in the everyday and trusting that even the hardest paths can lead to light. As you listen to Clint's journey, consider how your own life might be touched by faith, how moments of clarity and vision can open doors to transformation. In the next part, we'll share Clint's personal message to you, the audience, and the wisdom he offers about faith, vision, and living with purpose. Clint Eastwood's spiritual journey, sparked by a profound vision, carries a message that resonates far beyond his personal story. It is a message about faith, transformation, and the power of a single moment to change the course of a life. Having walked the path from doubt and struggle to peace and purpose, Clint now shares words of encouragement and wisdom for anyone seeking meaning in their own lives. At the heart of his message is the invitation to embrace faith, not as a set of rules or rituals, but as a living, breathing relationship with Jesus Christ. Clint emphasizes that faith is deeply personal and transformative. It's about opening your heart to love, forgiveness, and grace, even when life feels uncertain or difficult. Clint encourages everyone to be open to the moments of vision and clarity that life offers. Those quiet, sometimes unexpected experiences that call us to look inward and reconsider our path. Whether it's a vision like his or a simple feeling of peace in a moment of prayer, these experiences can become turning points. He reminds us that transformation doesn't require perfection. Faith is not about having all the answers, but about trusting the journey and being willing to change, grow, and learn. Another important part of Clint's message is humility. He shares how his vision taught him that true strength comes from humility, accepting our limitations and relying on God's guidance rather than our own ego or control. This humility, Clint explains, allows us to connect more deeply with others, to forgive more readily, and to live with compassion and kindness. Clint also speaks about purpose. He believes that each person is called to live with intention and to use their gifts to serve others. For him, following Jesus gave his life a renewed sense of meaning and direction, guiding his choices both personally and professionally. He encourages viewers to seek their own purpose, to ask the hard questions, and to be patient with the answers. Transformation is a process, often unfolding over time through prayer, reflection, and action. Clint's message is grounded in hope. No matter what your past looks like or what struggles you face, there is always the possibility of renewal. Faith opens the door to healing, peace, and a life lived with joy. He urges people not to be afraid of change, but to embrace it as a path to freedom and fulfillment. In sharing his journey, Clint Eastwood also acknowledges the importance of community. He highlights the support he found in fellow believers, mentors, and loved ones who walked with him on his spiritual path. This community provided encouragement, accountability, and love, reminding us that no one has to face their journey alone. For those watching, Clint's story is an invitation to reflect on your own life, to be open to the moments of vision that call you to something greater, and to consider the possibility of faith as a source of strength and transformation. He ends with a simple but powerful call to action, to seek God's guidance, to live with humility and purpose, and to allow love to guide every step. Clint Eastwood's decision to follow Jesus Christ and the vision that led him there did more than change his own life. It inspired countless others around the world. His story is a testament to the power of faith, humility, and transformation, showing that no matter where you come from or what you've accomplished, a single moment of clarity can redirect your entire path. After embracing his faith, Clint's life took on new meaning. His work, his relationships, and his public presence all reflected the deep change inside him. But beyond the personal, his story became a beacon of hope for many struggling with doubt, loss, or searching for purpose. Videos and interviews about Clint's spiritual journey began circulating widely. People from different backgrounds shared how his openness encouraged them to explore their own faith. His example showed that even the toughest, most independent people can find peace and strength through Jesus Christ. In Hollywood, a place often viewed as distant from spirituality, Clint stood out as a rare example of someone blending success with deep personal faith. He proved that fame and faith are not mutually exclusive, that you can be both a legend on screen and a humble follower of Christ. Clint's story also sparked important conversations about the role of faith in everyday life. Fans, critics, and fellow artists discussed how spirituality shapes character, decision-making, and legacy. His journey reminded many that faith is not about perfection or judgment, but about grace and growth. Moreover, Clint's commitment inspired action. He became more involved in charitable work, using his influence to support causes that aligned with his values of compassion and justice. Whether quietly donating or publicly advocating, his faith motivated him to serve others. For many, Clint Eastwood's journey is a source of encouragement. It teaches that transformation is possible at any age, in any circumstance. It reminds us that the pursuit of success without purpose can leave us empty, but embracing faith can fill that void with meaning. This story is also a call to reflection. How do we respond when faced with moments of vision or spiritual awakening? Do we listen and follow, or do we ignore the call? Clint's journey shows the power of saying yes to that call, even when it requires change and courage. It highlights that faith is a lifelong path filled with challenges, but also with hope, peace, and joy. As we close this story, remember Clint's example. Humility, grace, and a willingness to transform can lead to a life far richer than fame or fortune alone. Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey. If Clint's story moved you, Please share your thoughts in the comments and consider subscribing for more stories of faith and transformation.